Shabbat Shalom, fellow Israelites. This is Rabbi Shmuel ben Yehoshua from the tribe of Judah with this week's 10-minute Torah, this week's Torah portion. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great Shavuot. And we're looking forward to Tisha B'Av. Actually, I'm not looking forward to it at all. For some reason, Tisha B'Av is my least favorite holiday, if you will. We've done so much as Jews. Yes, there's rampant anti-Semitism these days, but it seems to affect us minimally. So you got to think that maybe Hashem is looking after us. Maybe Hashem is on our side. We are fighting back, not violently. People say, "What do you do about anti-Semitism?" And there's an old saying, "Fight fire with fire." But you know what? If you fight fire with fire, what do you get? More fire. How do people fight fire? With water. You put it out. So what we're doing is we're using legal means. We are using the law. We are getting people on our side. And that seems to be stemming the tide. As a rabbi, I feel like I've been getting a lot of inquiries, from people who are not Jewish that are interested. And we seem to be growing our synagogue, our shul. So that to me is all good. So, Tisha B'Av, of course, is a designated day that observes the destruction of the first and second temple, the beginning of the Holocaust, the end of World War II or World War I. So, it's kind of like a day of disaster that we mourn. And I guess, we need to be aware of that. So I guess there is some validity to it. But then again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, and we will do services. I've committed myself to doing as many services as possible at the synagogue. Sometimes just a couple of people show up. Sometimes we almost have a million, but we're going to keep doing it. And as I've said before, come the fall, Hebrew School is going to be live. I will still do Zoom. We will still be on Zoom, but we're also going to be live. So we'll have people here in the synagogue, people that show up, okay? And another announcement, I have some children that are getting involved in Hebrew School, maybe for the first time or kind of sporadically. So over the summer, we'll be doing a beginning children Hebrew class. Get the kids a little bit up to speed in Hebrew and go from there. Okay, Beha'alotcha. It's kind of an interesting term, and it means, when you rise. And who is it or what is it or who are they that are rising? And it's basically the Levites. So we have a lot of positives going on in this particular portion. We also, unfortunately, have some negatives. Now, in our triennial portion, we have three pretty big events. We have the discussion of the menorah and how the Levites will be taking care of that. Because what does the menorah involve? Light, right? Aura. There's your base of the word light, aura. Okay, so it's that which shines the light. And everybody, we look at a menorah and we think of the one stem and then the three on either side. But according to the description in the Torah, each of the three holders on either side of the middle are actually pointing in. They're not just straight up. They're actually kind of, I guess it would be kind of like this, wouldn't it? Pointing in a little bit. And the Levites are, it is their, of course, duty to keep it lit. We then have the consecration or ordination, if you will, or the Shemitah. The Shemitah of the Levites, those that will be ministering to the priests who will be officiating at the Mishkan. And finally, we have Pesach Sheni. We also, as we further go down into the Parsha, which we won't address in this year's triennial reading, but are addressed in later years. And that is the idea that here we are in Bamidbar in the wilderness, and people start grumbling. Where's our meat? In Egypt, we had all the fish we could have, cucumbers and all sorts of great stuff. So where's our meat? We're getting tired of manna. What was for breakfast? Manna. What's for lunch? Manna. Okay, what's for dinner? Manna. But we had that for lunch and dinner, and we had it yesterday. So people want meat. and God sends him quail, and God gets really angry, and God strikes him with a blow, and you know, there's a way to ask for things. Let's put it that way, and there's a way to be grateful for what you have. That's kind of the moral here. We also have Miriam and Aaron speaking out of place about Moses' relationship with his wife Zipporah. Moses apparently did not have relations with her very often because he always needed to be in a state of purity, and they felt that was unfair. And they were punished not for being concerned about Moses. Again, there's a right way to do things, but it's the way they went about it. They gossiped. They demeaned behind their back. So even our greatest people, Aaron and Miriam, who were astounding prophets, even they can, mess up every now and then, and they get the consequences just like everybody else. Maybe even more so because of their elevated status. They are expected to be above. Okay, as a rabbi, people look to me, and I'm very visible. My behavior is very visible, as it should be. I'm supposed to be an example to other Jewish people. It's a responsibility. I'm not touting any ego here. It's just the way it is. People look to me to be the embodiment of Judaism. So, I'm kind of on the hook to behave a certain way, which, by the way, I enjoy doing. I mean, people that are Jewish that are express Judaism, by doing a lot of the rituals, by doing a lot of praying. We don't do it because we feel we have to, or we're on the hook, or maybe there's a little bit of OCD there, but we do it because we're dedicated, because we find the value in Judaism. And for me, it is my mission to delve into that and to inspire people, make it relevant. Part of what I do. Okay. Sorry, folks, this is always off the cuff. I do not use a script. It's right off the top of my head. That's just the way I like to talk. Kind of like a fireside chat. Okay, so let's talk about the positive things, the first triennial portion that we're doing, and let's go through that. Let's talk about the Pesach Sheni first. So every now and then somebody dies. That's just, death is part of life. It is what it is. And in Judaism, you do final care of a person's body. Right? When a person's soul or their nefesh leaves the body, leaves this shell that God created so that we can interact in the material world, God created through, of course, father and mother, there is a certain care to be taken. There are certain procedures that we do. The body is cleansed. It is prepared for interment, burial in the right way. And in Judaism, there is a history of people that volunteer to do this. It's kind of a mitzvah. And it's the ultimate mitzvah because the person for whom you're caring can never return the favor. They're dead. They're gone. So you're performing a mitzvah for a person and who can never repay it. And that's why it's such a pure mitzvah. Unfortunately, when you do that, you're contaminated for 7 days. Now, let's go back and talk about this a little bit. I've mentioned contamination with a corpse, and some people get upset because we all have an idea in our mind what contamination is. But it's a spiritual contamination, and it's not a bad thing. It just means that, there's a period of time that you have to come back to spirituality, even though you've performed a mitzvah and you've gotten credit, spiritual, divine credit for performing that mitzvah. It's a good thing. So the people said, Moses, we didn't get a chance to partake in the Passover festival because we had just got done taking care of a person after their soul left, final care of a corpse. And because they're impure, they cannot partake in the Passover offering. So Moses said, I'll get back to you. He confirms with Hashem, and Hashem says, well, tell you what, we're going to have an abbreviated Passover for those people that is a month after, a month, give enough time, after the regular Passover. So it's just 1 day, not a big deal. You can have leaven, just don't deal with it, but you still eat the matzah, you still do the Passover offering, the Pesach offering, and you fulfilled your obligation, your mitzvah. You've had taken on the mitzvah. And people were pretty satisfied with that. Okay. We also have a situation prior to that where the Levites are ordained. Now, in the Torah, it discusses how Moses and Aaron performed a wave offering, a wave service for the Levites. Now, this is kind of interesting because the Art Scroll, which is an Orthodox Chumash and very fundamental, says, well, if they performed a wave offering, and usually when the priest did a wave offering, they took the foreleg of the offering and waved it in the air. So Moses and Aaron must have gained some superhuman strength and raised all the Levites and waved them in the air. Rabbi Dr. Hertz of the Sonsino Chumash, which is a conservative, which is kind of, let's take a look at reality here, said they probably just had to move back and forth in a wave, kind of like in a football or a baseball game. Everybody stands up and does a wave. More practical, more realistic. So I always like to contrast these two opinions because it shows you just how different commentaries can be from certain people. Okay, once again, thank you for listening, my fellow Israelites and my fellow Jews by choice. You're welcome to the righteous, the Ger, that people that resides among us. So Shabbat Shalom, and looking forward to seeing you in services.